Good evening, Chairman Middleton, members of council. My name is Eric Adams. I'm your Public Works Director. Tonight we'll be giving you a briefing on the roads portion of the transportation sales tax. We're going to start out with kind of an overview of the program broken into our different funding categories. So the first categories, moving from left to right on your slides, are our annual allocation program. That's resurfacing, bike and pedestrian, intersection improvements, rural roads, and local paving. So you can see some of the statistics below, the amount of funding that has been applied to those different categories, the number of projects complete, number active, and some of the statistics. Then moving across the slide, we also have our 2004, what we refer to as our bonded projects. So those are our larger projects that have been completed, and then we'll also focus on our 2016 featured projects. So just some summary of these statistics. You can see them by category. This represents over $1 billion of work that has gone on as part of the roads portion of the transportation sales tax, totaling 55 miles of sidewalk, 16 miles of multi-use path, 12 miles of bike lane. There's also drainage associated with these projects, of any roadway projects. 46 miles of drainage pipe have been installed on these projects. In total, 492,000 tons of asphalt. So if we were to break that down by truck or load of asphalt, that would be about 31,000 trucks. So we could line those up bumper to bumper from downtown Charleston all the way to downtown Columbia full of asphalt. That's how much asphalt's been put down as part of your program. Moving on, we're going to kind of run through these different categories. The first one is what we call our pavement management or our resurfacing program. We're well known in the Southeast as one of the top pavement management programs. We've received 2 national awards in the last 3 years for our program. You can see the amount of roads that we have treated, just under 880 miles. That's about half the roads in the county that we have treated as part of this program. So that doesn't include our CTC program. If you add in our CTC program, you can double that amount. So we basically have touched every road throughout the county. If we look at that amount of roads, we basically resurfaced/treated roads that would stretch from Charleston all the way to New York City. So that gives you some kind of idea of how much we've done with this pavement management program. Moving on to our bike and pedestrian program, you can see 47 completed projects. Want to bring your attention to kind of what we're looking at over the next calendar year. We're anticipating 18 projects that we'll advertise, bike and pedestrian improvement projects. So that's 18 in 2025 with an anticipated value of about $3.1 million. In our intersection projects, we've completed 54 through the life of the program. That's a aerial picture of Sam Rippenberg at Highway 61 in West Ashley. Totaling about $26 million. Now, coming up in this year, we've got 12 projects that we're looking at advertising, totaling about $24 million. So that's going to include Calhoun at Courtney and also the Old Town intersection projects in West Ashley. So a lot of intersection work coming up. Our rural road local paving program, we've completed 74 projects. That totals about 15 miles of earth roads that we have improved throughout primarily rural Charleston County. 74 projects, 74 dirt roads that we have improved. 11 projects we're anticipating coming up this year with an estimated value of $4.4 million. So that's a lot of projects coming up just in our allocation program. We're looking at about 40 projects at a value of $31 million just coming up in this year. I want to quickly kind of touch on our 2004, what we refer to as our bonded projects. You can see the locations here spread throughout Charleston County. And wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the cash flow of the 2004 sales tax program. So along the bottom axis, your x-axis, we've got our years. So those are our fiscal years from when the program started in 2006. The green line represents the revenue of the program, so the money that has come into the program. The yellow line represents the expenditures, actual expenditures on the project. So not encumbered, not planned, this is money actually going out the door. I've also overlaid for you the projects that were completed. Those are also on a timeline scale, so it kind of gives you an idea of what was going on with projects during this cash flow. So you can see kind of, we had a lot of projects going on in construction between that FY9 to FY16. And the reason I want to show this to you is we talk a lot about in the 2016 a pay-as-you-go approach versus a bonded approach. So Here you can see we borrowed money 3 times throughout the life of the program. $29 million at the beginning of the program to get started, $90 million in FY08. So if we look at that, that borrowing there, you can see the gap between the green line and the yellow line raises up. So we end up with a lot of cash on hand. We don't really need that cash in the bank, right, because we're paying interest on that. So it's very critical that we try to time our borrowing with the schedule of the projects. We don't want to borrow too early and have to pay interest on money that we don't need to use immediately. Now, obviously, schedules of these transportation infrastructure projects are very complex. Things are moving around. So anticipating when to borrow based on what's going on in the market, it's very complex, but we must manage the cash flow, right? Our yellow expenditures cannot exceed that green line. So this is a constant thing that we're having to monitor and evaluate. As our bids come in, we don't really know what a project is going to cost until we see what the bids are when they come in. That's the true cost, right? What someone is going to charge you to actually build that project. And you can see even in FY 17-18, we got a little tight there on our cash flow, right? So it's a constant management. Proceeds for this sales tax are projected to continue until June of 2027. The expenditures will continue out beyond that, right? Because we'll have projects that'll continue going. We'll have debt repayment. Now, on these borrowings that we borrowed $261 million, we'll end up paying back about $110 million in debt service, or interest on top of that. So there's a cost to borrow money and bring that money forward. And we want to minimize that cost so that we can do more work with that money versus paying back the interest. So speaking to project delivery, why are these projects so complex? There's different steps. The first step is we have to be eligible for federal funding. We want to be able to bring in that matching money from outside the county. Environmental permitting process, very in-depth here, right? The outside agencies involved. Then we've got design permitting. Utility relocations is a major aspect, moving those water lines, those power lines out of the way. That takes time and coordination. And then, of course, right-of-way acquisition. Very sensitive with right-of-way acquisition. We don't want to have to take anybody's property if we don't have to. But I bring this up to just illustrate that construction is often the shortest component to any transportation infrastructure project. It's often the shortest, but it's definitely the most expensive phase of the project. Here's just to give you some ideas around the environmental permitting process. The primary driver in this process is public involvement. So through all these steps, we're asking the public opinions on the different alternatives. We're revising those alternatives. We're taking those back to the federal agencies for review and ultimately a decision by that federal agency before we can move forward to construction. Here's the different steps, just to give you kind of some idea of how many steps that go into these different, the project management of these types of projects. Now, as we move into, I want to brief you real quickly on our 2016 feature projects. This is a map of their locations. You can see we've got Glen McConnell is widening is complete. That's highlighted in green. 2 underway are Palmetto Commerce Interchange, the interchange on I-26, and then also the Main Road Segment A design build project. I want to be transparent with you on our schedule. So our 2016 projections are shown here in purple, and blue is what we're showing our current projections on the schedule. So these projects have slid back due to various reasons that we're mentioning, the environmental permitting process, the steps that we're going through. This also impacts our cash flow and how we manage. So we're constantly looking at where these projects are in timeline versus where our cash flow is. Here's our cash flow to date on this is just the 2016 sales tax. So you can see, again, the green line is our revenue, the yellow is our expenditures to date. And if you can see, I've put a red dash line. It's kind of hard to see there in that FY25 timeframe. And I've also put projects overlaid. Now, this is just the construction. These projects have been going on in the design and permitting phase since 2016. But you can see what's coming up in construction. I wanted to highlight that because watch that yellow line when we move to FY26, 27, you see how it exponentially is jumping. That's because we've got so many projects getting ready to go into construction and projected to go into construction. Palmetto Commerce underway, 17 of May, Segment A, the largest project ever undertaken by Charleston County is going underway. We're about to see a lot of movement there, a lot of expenditures going, a lot of building. The James Island intersections are going out for bid. So Savannah Highway, Airport Connector Road, Highway 41 coming up. So we're projecting a lot, and you can hopefully see under the graph there where the yellow line and the green line are getting very close in our projection in FY 27-28. So that means we're projecting we may need to borrow at some point. Now, we've always referred to the 2016 as pay-as-you-go, but it's always been known that borrowing would be anticipated as part of the project, as part of this program. So now I'll run through our projects, our feature projects quickly, just to give you a quick brief on these. Glen McConnell Parkway, $25 million project has been completed. Construction was on time and under budget. We've got Palmetto Commerce Interchange underway. That's a $90 million job. Construction is on time, expected to be complete on February 5th of next year. Main Road Segment A underway, largest infrastructure project ever taken on by Charleston County. Big milestone coming up is March 13th. We'll have our first quarterly project public meeting. Airport Connector Road. This would be a dedicated road to the airport. We're also working to incorporate SCDOT's interchange project as part of the Low Country corridor that they have. So those two projects will be combined. Working with Federal Highway Administration to get a record of decision on that before we can move to right-of-way acquisition. Moving into our James Island intersection projects, first one here is Fort Johnson at Successionville, installation of turn lanes and a signal there. We bid this project twice and received one bidder on each of these bids. That bid was well over estimated budget and what we thought was a reasonable price. So the market right now is a bit tough with contractors being very busy. We've noticed our number of bids have dropped over time. Back in the first program, we would see up to 8 bids on a project. Now on these, we're getting 0 bids on some sidewalks. Nobody's interested. So we're doing things to work on how outreach to contractors, how do we bring more contractors in and get them interested. But it is a market condition right now that we're facing. With this project, our approach is going to be to actually combine it and bid it with the next project, the Camp Road Roundabout project. So these projects are in close proximity to each other. We're going to combine them, bid them together in hopes that we'll attract more bidders and a more competitive price. Hoping those will go out late summer, but sometime this year as we finish up right-of-way on this project. Central Park at Riverland, this project's been before council numerous times. We're continuing to work with the community on this project regarding right-of-way to be very sensitive to any right-of-way acquisitions. We're making good progress on that. We're hopeful to have this one advertised by the end of the year. Folly Road Bike and Ped, this one is actually out for bid right now. The bids will begin later this month on this project. Savannah Highway capacity, this involves 3 intersections, one down in the Avondale area that we're working closely with the City of Charleston on right-of-way acquisition. They are the lead on the right-of-way acquisition in that area. The other 2 intersections are DuPont at Stinson and Wapoo. Those projects we expect to advertise this year for construction. Highway 41 project, we're continuing to work with Army Corps of Engineers. We're in review of our right-of-way plans. Those will then subsequently be submitted back to Army Corps for review. So we're continuing to work through that environmental permitting process. The Highway 78 improvements projects, we have engaged a consultant to work towards more detailed design with the primary focus of this project being on the Ladson Road, College Park, US 78 area shown on the graph here. This is where we see the most congestion and where our tax dollars can get the most benefit in this area by making improvements here. Dorchester Road corridor, we're looking at different areas of this project, our phasing. Area A would tie into a potential project by Dorchester County. Area B is all along Joint Base Charleston, working closely with them on right-of-way acquisition of the federal property there. Then Area C is down more towards Michaud Parkway. So potentially looking at the timing of those may vary depending on the variables on those and how quickly they come to fruition. So we may be able to move with one of the phases quicker, such as Phase C, that would tie in nicely with Airport Connector Road and maybe give us some more immediate benefit in the near future. So we're looking at a phasing option on that potentially. Palmetto Commerce Parkway Phase 3. This is probably our most complex project given the overlap with the clear zone and the runways at the airport, the need to acquire easement and obtain easement from the federal government on their property adjacent to where our road will kind of loop around the airport there. but we're in close coordination. We meet biweekly with Joint Base Charleston, continuing to push this project forward and get those agreements in place. That summarizes all of our projects. I wanted to wrap up with the last slide discussing our RFQ for public outreach, education, and engagement. So the primary points on this RFQ, which would be a advertisement requesting qualifications from vendors that would then submit and be evaluated. Key points would be public perception and research around the TST program, roads program, communicating accomplishments in an easily understandable way, brand and messaging around the program, and then engaging the public in part of the process moving forward. We've been in close coordination with different departments. IT would be involved with this a little bit potentially, but also our Public Information Office is going to take the lead on this initiative with Public Works supporting them with all the data and any statistics and things that would be needed. You should, I believe the clerk has sent you a summary of the scope of work and the evaluation criteria. The procurement department has reviewed, the legal department has reviewed. We are ready to advertise that RFQ. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.